I was pleased to step into the role of chair in January this year, assuming that from Bryce Carmini. And my appointment followed on from that of Damien Clark-Bruce, as CEO last November. Might I take this opportunity to thank Bryce for his outstanding leadership of the company over these years, and I'm particularly delighted that he's remained with us on the board. Now, a few months back in January, Dr. Larry Turker also joined the board as a director. Larry's a leader in the field of immunology research, an emeritus professor at Harvard, and he's also been a Boston-based serial entrepreneur. He brings exceptional experience to Haemalogix and has already made great contributions. Finally, we're particularly delighted to welcome Professor Greg Hunt, our former Australian Federal Minister of Health, to the board as a director. Now, this is an exceptional appointment. Throughout his tenure in government, Greg oversaw our country's response to COVID-19 and was responsible for a range of long-lasting reforms, including the implementation of telehealth as a permanent and universal centrepiece of our Medicare, our Australian Universal Insurance Program. He reformed private health and established long-term plans for mental health, aged care, primary care, and medical research. And he was also responsible for listing more than 2,000 medicines for public access. So we're seeing that the company is moving forward dynamically with an exceptional board that brings together varying competencies that are going to accelerate asset development and accelerate our reach into commercial markets.
For me, ultimately, there are three pillars here. Firstly, the science. Secondly, the patients, which is about the results. And thirdly, the people in the company. In terms of the science, immunotherapy, CAR T therapy, these are evolving. The Nobel Prize for Medicine was awarded in this space only a few years ago. And what it means is more targeted treatments for patients with fewer side effects. And against that background, Haemalogix is evolving novel antigens, which they've identified in multiple myeloma, potentially in amyloidosis, potentially in autoimmune disease. That then translates to the patients and the results. The phase 2 results so far have been very, very positive, both with regards to safety and efficacy. Those two elements together. And there's more work to be done, both in terms of the monoclonal antibodies, the CAR T, and the biospecifics. But they are incredibly promising to date on the published results and the work of the Peter MacCallum Clinic in Australia and the Alfred Hospital in Australia. And then finally, all of that comes together under the commercial leadership and the ability to translate that science and those patient results into commercial products. And the leadership of John Cullity, from whom I'm learning already, of Damien Clark-Bruce as the CEO of Roseanne and the scientific team. For me, to be part of a firm with an international scientific advisory board, an experienced non-executive director board, and then the actual executive leadership and the scientific leadership, that's an exciting prospect. More to be done on the continued confirmation and evolution, but the science is strong. The results to date are very, very heartening to be expressed in terms of the impact on saving lives and protecting lives. And then the commercial prospects are really the Australian story that we want to see. My work takes me across the world. I've recently done lectures in the United States, albeit online, with Yale University not that long ago, with work in Canada, work in New Zealand. There's the work in the United Kingdom. And what I find is that the different parts of my portfolio interweave. And that's a mixture of capital, legal, scientific, emerging firms, established firms. I've consciously maintained it as a non-executive rather than an executive career, said no to executive roles and previously said no to directorships. I wanted to concentrate on building that portfolio of linkages, and to be able to see an Australian product which has the potential to save lives and protect lives around the world, that's very exciting. Now, everything depends on making sure that the clinical trials continue to stack up and that the science is published, refereed. But one of the things that was most important to me is that there is a total unified focus across Roseanne, John and Damien and the board and the executive leadership about patient safety, patient outcomes, and then independent verified scientific work which is publishable and published. And so that rigor is what I was looking for in the very area that I thought was probably the most exciting medical innovation that I witnessed and was able to support as minister, the immunotherapy space and the capacity to help people with previously intractable cancer conditions. To see that occurring, that's just a privilege to be a part of.
Indeed, this is genuinely exciting within the myeloma setting. Might I say that this decision by the FDA was almost 15 years in the making, with a long-term, rigorous clinical analysis being conducted by international investigators. And really, it's the burden of evidence that's led the FDA to make this call. So terrific indeed to see minimal residual disease, or MRD, now as an acknowledged outcome metric that will be woven into clinical trials. I might say that we at Haemalogics are somewhat ahead of that curve in that we've been integrating MRD into our studies now for some time, but excellent all the more to see it picked up more broadly by the world's leading regulatory authority. Perhaps I could provide a little bit of background about MRD itself. And what it relates to is that very small number of cells that remain after treatment has been given to the patient. We haven't been able to eradicate all of the myeloma. And we know, based upon, yes, that long-term assessment, that this really matters in terms of patient survival. Now, patients who are negative for MRD have a markedly greater chance of surviving longer. And to the point that I was making before, we're now seeing that about 1 in 4 clinical trials conducted by our peers are integrating MRD. Watch that space, it's only going to increase from here. Now, the proposed FDA change, as we read it, will accelerate the development of new therapies for patients and arguably shave many years off the development cycle. In short, this means better drugs sooner for patients. And so from that perspective, it's a genuinely exciting reform from the FDA. And as mentioned, we're all in here at Haemalogics in terms of that as an outcome metric. Might I further add that our scientific advisory board has cheered this universally and looks forward to the further integration of MRD endpoints in the myeloma setting.
Building on what John had to say, there's a wave of medical history that's occurring at the moment. And so each year, there are new developments in the immunotherapies. The recent decision of the FDA reinforces that. And so what you see is that there is a wave of history with regards to the innovation with regards to the immunotherapies. In particular, Haematologics comes along at the time that the regulatory authorities are looking to bring it forward at a faster pace. And the reason they want to bring it forward at a faster pace is because it's the impact for patients coupled with the fact that we now have an established field, but with a strong safety record. And all of those things come together. Yes, I've had a very fortunate career in public life, and we were managing over $132 billion in the health portfolio, over 7,000 staff. But it is different, and I'm very aware of this, looking at it in the commercial space. And to be able to learn from somebody such as John on the board front, the way in which he approaches with a really structured and rigorous phased analysis of each step that the company has to achieve. So looking across the 3 horizons of growth, looking across the stages and matching that with the commercial opportunities, but also the human management and the structured gateway for approvals. That's actually, for me, a really exciting personal development. I wanted to make sure that I was working with people from whom I could learn, as well as to whom I could hopefully contribute. That's the combination that I think is truly exciting for me, but also for patients and also for Australia, with our capacity to take a new novel immunotherapy approach and to provide it to patients around the world.
Haematologics is pioneering the development of novel immunotherapies for patients with blood cancers and B-cell disorders. We have a range of assets in our portfolio and have now completed and published a phase 2 clinical trial in patients with multiple myeloma. Now, as some of you may know, this is a notoriously challenging disease to treat, and our results have been exceptional by any measure. That phase 2B study was led by Professor Andrew Spencer from the Alfred in Melbourne, and it demonstrated an overall 83% response rate combined with current standard of care treatments. We're excited at the momentum that's being generated and the quality of the conversations that we're having with leading investors in our country as they warm to this multi-layered value proposition at Haematologics. And we look forward with some anticipation to closing out the current round and applying that capital to take our programs forward. Perhaps a few words about some catalysts that we anticipate over the coming months. Well, we've mentioned the Capimab, our lead antibody program in phase 2B, and there'll be more to report on that as we go into and through that clinical program. But here I'd very much like to call out the collaborative work that we're conducting with the Peter Mac in Melbourne with our CAR-T program. And we eagerly await that clinical protocol's approval and related patient recruitment into the phase 1 program. Now, naturally enough, recruitment will drive timelines, but on first principles, we're seeking to demonstrate an outsized clinical benefit for patients within, say, 18 months. And we'll be providing announcements to our shareholders and to the market more broadly regarding the accrual in that phase 1 program. Then there's our follow-on antibody and CAR-T programs, which will deliver still further patient value, clinical value, and commercial value. And for those who want to learn more about what we're up to at Haematologics, I invite you to visit haematologics.com. It's an information-rich website. And of course, any questions related to that, don't hesitate to contact any of us, me personally, Damien, or other members of the team.